North American scholars, pastors, and spiritual leaders, of course, approach trauma from an individualistic perspective. In our virtual gathering today, we're introducing him as Claremont School of Theology's Aizaiah Yong, but actually Aizaiah spends most of his time now as the executive director at the Louisville Institute in central Minnesota. Aizaiah is going to share some resources, practical integrations, and new models of trauma care that extend beyond our individualistic approaches towards a holistic model. Additionally, Executive Director and Bible scholar Vanessa Lovelace of the Louisville Institute is going to be with us, sharing about upcoming grant opportunities for scholars and practitioners. Aizaiah and Vanessa, we welcome you. And I'm going to hand it over to Aizaiah.
All right. Well, thank you, Phil. This is really a privilege and an honor to be here in community together. I was loving even just getting to know a few folks in the breakout. So I don't believe I have a lot of time today, so we can't go super deep here, but I do want to offer just a little bit of my own story, lived experience. As was mentioned, I serve at a faith-based residential research center at a Benedictine monastery in central Minnesota, the Louisville Institute, where I get to convene folks from all across cultural and spiritual traditions to explore the practices, ideas, and insights that our faith teaches us and what that can mean for renewal of the world. I'm also a practical theologian. I spent the last 5 or 6 years at a few different seminaries teaching spiritual care, spiritual formation, spiritual autobiography. And it was during that time, and I'm so pleased to say, I received a book grant from the Louisville Institute, which Dr. Vanessa Lovelace will share more about opportunities later. But it allowed me to take a sabbatical to write the book that I'm about to share a little bit with you on, and to have time away to reflect and to be in community, and to put to paper some of the transformative experiences that I lived through, as well as some of the others who love me and were close to me in that time. And I'll share more about that in a bit. So shout out to the Louisville Institute, and a lot of gratitude for the work that's being done there, which allowed me to get to reflect on some of what I'm going to share today. So I created a slide deck that I'll share with you. If it works well. Okay. Can you all see that? Thumbs up in the house? Okay, great. So I wrote a book that came out last year called Trauma and Renewal. It was published by Orbis. I got to do so alongside 2 other people who happened to be my parents, but also were spiritual caregivers, the primary spiritual caregivers during a time of recovering from severe trauma, a near-death experience that I went through. So I'm going to share just a little bit of what that book was and what it's about. If you're interested to know more, I hope you might check out the book, or perhaps be in conversation and communication with me as well. I'd like to start off with this quote as we think about trauma transformation, from James Baldwin, who, when I read this quote, I'm not going to lie, I thought, well, this sums up the whole thing of what I was trying to say in what I wrote, just in a few sentences. So he wrote this: perhaps the whole root of our trouble, the human trouble, is that we will sacrifice all the beauty of our lives, will imprison ourselves in totems, taboos, crosses, blood sacrifices, steeples, mosques, races, armies, flag nations, in order to deny the fact of death, which is the only fact we have. It seems to me that one ought to rejoice in the fact of death, ought to decide indeed to earn one's death by confronting with passion the conundrum of life. One is responsible to life. It is the small beacon in that terrifying darkness from which we come and to which we shall return. So this calling to be responsible to life as it is, life in all the forms and all the places and all the beauties and all the pains, this calling to confront within each of us, right, this conundrum that we're offered, that we all have a personal journey with it. Well, in my case, this happened in a pretty intense way on October 16th, 2018, almost 8 years ago. And right there, you'll see Highway 57 in Southern California. If any of you are Southern California people, you might recognize this place. But it's at the intersection of Highway 90, Highway 57, that I was on my way home from defending my comprehensive exams in my PhD program. I was on my motorcycle, riding home back to my family, my partner at the and my two children, one who was just born a few months prior. And as I was coming down Highway 57 to return home, a Ford F-150 truck didn't see me in the lane and turned into my lane to try to avoid rear-ending the car in front of them, sent me off my motorcycle, and was left in the middle of the road on the freeway in Southern California. I had some amazing strangers who showed up to compassionately shield me. They actually turned their car horizontally in the traffic lane, got out of their car, and stayed with me until the help came. I later found out this was a recently immigrant couple who had moved from Egypt, a Muslim couple who came and surrounded me. And there was also a third person, a man on another motorcyclist who was moved to stop and also show up. And he had this belt. I remember that he put a tourniquet on my leg. Don't ask me how he did. He knew how to do that, because I don't think he knew how to do that, but he did that day. And that also was a big difference. Found out later he was a Jewish man from Lebanon. So there was a Christian pastor left in the road, and had three strangers come and provide support and really saved my life. And had a long road from there, was sent to the hospital, and had 30 days where I was hospitalized, 6 surgeries, and another 8 months of being unable to walk. In fact, it was my second child who was learning to walk that was my inspiration to learn to walk again with him. And so it was a long journey. It was a real intense journey, and something that taught me a lot, continues to teach me a lot, but not just me, really was grateful for the ways in which community. And that's really what I hope to underscore today in terms of talking about this, that I have my own personal experience to share, but it was because of so many other people who showed up, who stayed, who listened, who cared, who were willing to be interrupted, that allowed for the healing to flow in my life. And so the first thing I like to share about this is during a long surgery, which the book I wrote kind of details a little bit more of this, I had a spiritual experience in the surgery itself. It was meant to be an 8-hour surgery. It went almost 16 hours. And I had this amazing, really difficult, but amazing experience where I encountered Christ, and was with him during that time. And we were able to spend time together in silence at a river. And that was healing. That was totally not what I expected in terms of what the healing could look like, but was one of the most profound moments for me in terms of tasting, the ways that life is for life, that life loves life, and that life loves us even in the midst of the things that we're holding that are heavy, that are challenging. So I'm thankful for that experience where Christ led me to that. There were also some significant contemplative teachings and teachers that were accompanying me in my repair and recovery and renewing process. The first one you see there is Raimon Panikar. He's a Catholic priest, philosopher, who has a beautiful teachings related to interculturality and interreligious dialogue. Mary Magdalene is there in the right corner, and her presence and her teachings in terms of the love and the care and the ways to really be present to our bodies, right? To really listen to our bodies and what they have to teach us. I spent a lot of time in my life not listening very well to my body. Even as an athlete, I played college basketball, but wasn't really in tune with my body. And that was a real important insight. Julian of Norwich there, and the persistence of life to continue to journey with us and persevere in patience, and then Howard Thurman, who was a primary spiritual leader in the civil rights, and his teachings on Jesus's path as a technique of survival for those who are oppressed was significant and important in terms of healing from my own journey and learning about that in that way. So I'm grateful for these teachers that have walked through some things, that have faced, the ultimate, the conundrum of life, as James Baldwin would put it, and then have shared from their own lived wisdom some support. They offer some support, some trustworthy guidance, as Jim Finley would say, that we might find our way when it feels like there's not really a way forward. It's a great segue to talk about some other things that were very powerful for me in terms of the recovery, and still to this day are. There's this album here that I listened to probably 100 times in the hospital while I was recovering. It's called Sanctuary by Alana Lewandowski and James Finley. And this is really Jim Finley was a therapist, was a spiritual directee of Thomas Merton. He's also, contemplative teacher, and Alana Lewandowski is a musician. And so they have this whole album that's set up to really walk through not only the spiritual dimensions of suffering, but also the ways in which we might be part of the transformation of that. So Sanctuary was an amazing album. I recommend it. It's kind of like folk music. I'm not even a huge folk music fan, if I can say that, but I loved what this offering opened up. It was really, really profound. Poetry and storytelling. So just acknowledging the ways in which the poets have such an important role to play in our healing. So if I have any poets in the house, I'm smiling at you. And for those aspiring poets, I'm calling you to write more poetry. Those were amazing gifts that were offered, people sending poems, sending prayers to me in the hospital, that really kept my spirit nurtured and nourished in that time. And then the power of storytelling. And so, certainly there's certain stories that we're told, certain stories that we're conditioned to work with. But one of the things that trauma opens up, right, is the sense that the stories that we were handed, they don't work anymore. The things that we thought we could look to, things change now. We can't unsee what we've seen if we make it through it. And so there's has to be a reconstructive story, a restorying that we're invited into in our own pace, in our own ways, and certainly with the support of many others. And so the power of telling our stories, the power of listening closely to the edges of our stories in the spiritual autobiography classes that I am very honored to get to teach. It's amazing to see when we have the courage to share some of that, but not just to share it and to write it, to express it, to bring it out, but also to have community to witness it. That's one of the things I was raised as a Pentecostal Christian. I pastored for about 6 years in a Pentecostal church. I'm now a clergy in the Disciples of Christ. But this power to bear witness to one another's testimonies. And even when the testimonies are not complete or finished or all put together, the power to listen and be with one another in that, I think, is really important. Okay, I'm almost through here for my part. I just want to lift up a few of the amazing people that were also part of this healing path that I think, moving us away from individual stories to really a relational healing, communal healing. I want to lift up the hospital that helped me, folks at UC Irvine, the nurses and the surgeons, the friends and family that were surrounding me. I mentioned my parents were the primary caregivers. My sisters were able to take time away and also care for me. I remember vividly, my sister, I'm the oldest, taking time to even just wrap my wounds, on my body, and just the care of others in that. I mentioned the strangers, certainly therapists, social workers were supportive for me in this process. And so I want to advocate for that. Seminary faculty and staff at the Claremont School of Theology, where I was a student. And I remember I was a TA when all this happened. I remember one of the faculty I was working with just said, "Listen, don't worry about it. We got you. The best thing you can do is continue to heal, continue to take the time you need." And so I just lift this up because having communities of people in the institutions we're part of that just are there for you, are there with you, and want you to be well, makes a huge difference. And then spiritual direction as well is really important. So I think with that, I'm moving quickly. I know we don't have too much time, but these are a few questions that I wanted to open us up to if we go to breakout rooms, that I think kind of stem from what I'm hoping to lead us into, but I hope also give us a chance to reflect on our own ministries, our own lives, the people that we support day in and day out, in terms of really moving this conversation from just even though it's deeply personal, but moving it beyond kind of individualism and really asking what kind of relationships to God, what kind of relationships to wisdom elders or teachers can support us, and then what kind of relationship to our rhythms of life that can help us. What kinds of choices can we make intentionally as leaders, as spiritual care providers, to provide space and windows that the healing that we long for can kind of unfold at its own time. And so those are the things I wanted to offer. You can take one or that kind of calls to you when we go to our breakouts, but I'd offer those as maybe potential places to start sharing what's kind of coming up for you in those ways. Oh, thank
Right
you.
then.
Yeah,
Thank
let's
you,
go ahead.
Isaiah. We certainly
Yeah,
appreciate that.
great.
And so Thad is putting the questions into our notes here, into the chat section. And once we have those present for us, we'll go ahead and move on into our breakout rooms. We have opportunity now to have a little bit of a question and answer period. And probably the easiest thing, well, the easiest thing is to raise your hand, but and the not so easy thing is to try to moderate that. So if you have a question that you would like looks like Thad's got one to start us with, but if you have one, just please go ahead and add it to the chat. And I'll just repeat that. Kashmiri, I believe, is going to be helping us as well with this. But let me get that chat thing up here. Okay. So, as a practical theologian, how have you integrated these concepts into the practice of your ministry and teaching? In other words, how have you been able to help others with these concepts?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. Well, one of the ways that I just did is one of the examples, I suppose, which is storytelling, and encouraging stories to be shared and told. Um, sometimes there's lots of ways to do it. When you look at different teachers as well, I mentioned that they all have their own journeys and encounters with these challenges, and so sometimes it's a little too much, right, to go into one's own story, but it's a little easier to kind of connect to another story. There's a little more distance, and so being able to hear about other people that we might look to and say, well, how did that happen? And then to recognize, well, actually, it's because there was a lot that went into that. There was a fullness of life that had to have been grappled with, and so that's I think really helpful. The album I shared, Sanctuary, certainly has that arc. There's certain songs that you hear that will be like, how long is this? I thought I've come so far in the healing path, and now I feel like I'm right back at the beginning. What's going on with that? And so just having others to be able to validate and affirm that as part of the experience, the holiness as that as part of the experience, I think is really powerful. The other thing I'd love to lift up is just to connect to our bodies, right? And what I mean by that is I do a lot of teaching hybrid, Zoom, like we're doing here. And so I have a rule, like if we're going for an hour, like there's going to be a body break. And whether someone's going to lead it or whether you can do whatever you need to do, just connecting in every moment to this amazing gift we have of our bodies as they are where they are and being able to love on them, to be loved in them throughout our day, I think is really important. The last thing I guess I would say, yeah, is curiosity. Because, I always say that curiosity is like a gateway to compassion. Like if we don't feel like we have compassion in our life, maybe we can get curious first and just wonder like what's happening here. And so I think part of the path and where I'm grateful to have support of others is being curious with me and teaching me how to be curious about what's happening in my lived experience to try to be less judgmental about it because then we get locked into like the narrative. But if we just get curious and we listen to our own lives and kind of the longings that are there, there's a lot to share, and then more makes sense of where we're at, and we can honor that too. So I would like to encourage curiosity wherever possible as we walk through it with others. So, a few things.
Are there other questions?
I can jump
I'll go
in.
ahead and
Well,
ask. Isaiah, when
okay.
you obviously you were, I think you said it was actually the day of defending the orals for your comprehensive exams. Is that what you said? Okay, well, that's a rather momentous day in itself. Um, how would, what would you say is, I suppose after you maybe woke up and began to process what had happened to you, what was the first, major kind of change that you thought that you think, I'm just not the person? I mean, I suppose certainly the physical aspect, but were there other things that suddenly you saw yourself differently? Um, that's a
Hmm.
big one, I suppose, but
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I don't,
let me
I
just,
mean,
I'll just elaborate real quickly is,
yeah.
again, having gone through that, as I'm sure a number of folks have, is everything is so leading up to that moment that it's easy to kind of forget that there's actually anything else going on in our lives. So you
Hmm.
had a rather abrupt end to that very little transition to whatever the next thing would be. So I'll shut up now.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's I mean, they're liminal moments, that we go through and that we pass through, and you know, part of it is, being able to accept, for me, just a little more, and I'm still learning it every day, how to open up to that sense of life for life, life beyond, like the life, capital L, working to support life and giving myself more fully to it, at its own rhythms and pace. Um, Certainly, for me, when I walk through that experience, well, I didn't walk through it, I fell and I stayed down for a long time, and still have a disability as I walk in the world. But I think it's one of the biggest teachings is kind of to be present to life as it goes and moves in the ways it does, and to kind of entrust myself, to that. Um, yeah. So anyway, I'm not trying to get too lofty on it. I mean, I think very practically it just helps ground me into the moment, feeling my feet on the ground, trying to eat well, getting sleep, although I have 4 children, so that one's a question mark always. But sleeping, right? Getting lots of water. I mean, these sound very like mundane, right? But honestly, that's what that experience opened up, was this fullness of life, just right here, right now, being able to take that in and kind of honor it at whatever pace. So
Okay. We have one more, and I think we'll have you answer Sean's question, and then we'll move on to the second part of our time together. So Sean is asking, could you describe how your relationship to the divine has changed since your encounter with Christ during your surgery?
so that could be a long answer, but I'll try to just say, um, no, it feels good to say. Okay, so I'll try to kind of just move through a little quicker, but I'm happy to talk more about this at another time if people are interested in that. So one of the things about me growing up as a Pentecostal, Protestant, storm the castle for God mentality, basically. Like go out there, evangelize, be on mission, see things change, see things, see the miracles of the New Testament happen. Like it could go on, but just giving you a little context. So when this all happened and I met Christ, I remember him and just his infinite compassion that understood where I was, the love, the sense of I'm not going anywhere. I'll be with you for as long as it takes. I'm with you right where you are, just as you are. Infinite love. Okay, that's amazing, right? To experience that. I mean, seriously. But then so I experienced that, and then my next response, because I'm a Pentecostal, right? Was like, all right, great, we got the healing. Like, let's go and share this message with everybody. Everybody's got to know about this. This is a good thing. And I remember, Jesus looks at me, smiles, and he was actually really funny in my own experience, which was great. The humor, lightening it up, the levity, just experiencing life. He's like, let's go for a walk instead. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, are you serious? Like, the world is on fire. Like people, there are issues. Like this is not okay. Like this is not okay. Like we have to go and we gotta do something about this. Especially, I'm thinking you, Jesus, because you certainly know what to do. So let's do something. He's like, let's go for a walk. So going a long walk and just take time to then to move slowly. and then to spend time at this river. I shared a picture of a river that most of the experience I had was just in silence at a river, and which was really strange for me as a Pentecostal who wants to go off and see things changed. But I think I'll continue to spend the rest of my life kind of contemplating what that gift was. But I do believe that um, it was a willingness to be with life in the movement. So much of what I had internalized was to kind of make life something else, like, get to heaven elsewhere, bring something else here. And I think for me, the biggest change in terms of experientially was to begin to see all that love burst through the ordinary, to see all that love, all that compassion, all that joy, all that mercy overflowing in the very stillness of the water moving at the river. And so I'm very grateful, touches my heart in a very deep place to remember. So thank you for asking in that way, but also just to really kind of return to life in all of her glory and all of her pain and all of her promise and all of her suffering, and to be present for it as long as I'm granted the opportunity. So yeah, thank
Very
you.
good. Thank
Hey,
you.
Phil, before we move on, I think Kashmiri had a question, and then there's one more in the chat, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Isaiah, for sharing all this. And yeah, really appreciate how much you mentioned the Christian contemplative tradition and the mystics, and yeah, love all that part of the church. And I'm just curious about learning a little bit about Christian practices that you've kind of been practicing since that encounter, or that all of that happened, and that you still bring into your everyday life. Maybe there's practices that you struggle to maintain, but ones that you've found that really open yourself up to God in a deeper, more full way. So,
Yes. Thank you, Kashmiri, for that question too. So there's a few different ones that kind of stick out. The first one is something called the compassion practice. So Frank Rogers Jr. and Andrew Dreitzer and Mark Yaconelli were the kind of creators of this practice, if you will. And we train spiritual directors. Part of their work in that we train spiritual directors in the compassion practice. It's a very important practice to me. It's beautiful. I encourage y'all to check it out, to look it up. In fact, Frank just came out with the revised edition of the kind of connecting that practice to Jesus's life and ministry, Upper Room book. So you can check that out. The other one is music. I love music. I love singing, dancing. I have 4 children between the ages of 3 and 11, and we're always creating songs together for everything. And so we sing them, songs to pray at the table, songs to go outside, and songs to all kinds of things. So I think music is so powerful in terms of how it helps us to enter into some of the heart space, if you will. And so I mentioned the album that I listened to there, but just yeah, just music has really been powerful. And then lastly, writing, of course. I mean, that's why the book that I reflected on this, and why I love writing is because for me it really is a practice of integrating and clarifying where I'm being led, where I feel like I'm being led and called, and then in relationship to the world. And so I really encourage people, even if they're not meant to do major books or anything, even if it's journaling, if it's micro audio notes, if it's beginning to just put out there, taking it out from inside of you into something else, something material that you can begin to kind of reflect on your life and what the divine is up to. It's huge, really important for me, important practice. So thank you all.
Very good. Thank you, Isaiah. By way of transition, just one more. If you could, moving towards the Louisville Institute, if you could just very briefly describe what the grant allowed you to do practically in your work, and then what advice would you give to those who are thinking about applying for a Louisville Institute grant?
Do it. That's all I can say.
Okay,
Do it.
there you go.
Don't miss
The
miss the
Nike approach,
opportunity.
just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Just do it. Just apply. Yeah. So for me, because I was on faculty, it was the first book grant for scholars of color. So what the book allowed me to do was to actually take a full year of sabbatical. My institution had covered a semester, and that's what they were going to give me. But with the grant to help compensate for my salary replacement, it allowed me to take a full year away. And I can't tell you how amazing it is to have a full year to reflect and to write and to, actually it's during that year I went to Collegeville Institute for a writing workshop where I now serve as the ED, and I never that whole thing never saw that. And so this grant helped to open up those experiences, being in community, really getting to take the time and space necessary to really embark on writing this story in this initial way. So yeah, so I would encourage you to check it out. Dr. Lovelace will share more. They've got amazing opportunities. There's community support, there's mentorship, there's encouragement along the path. There is, and there's a I don't know what other word to say, but prestige. There's a prestige that goes with it to say that, hey, the work that you all have on this call, you all are doing amazing things. And so it's a way for that to be uplifted and known beyond just the context you serve. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Like this allows a platform and a space so that the amazing wisdom that you hold, that you're bringing out to this world, can be amplified to the wider body and to the community. So love Louisville Institute. Thank you, Dr. Lovelace, for your leadership there. And she'll share more about it, but I just say, just do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, speaking of the Louisville Institute, we are so pleased to also have Dr. Lovelace with us today. And so, Professor, I'm just going to let you tell us what you'd like us to know.
Thank you. I want to thank Thad Austin and the Common Table Collaborative for this invitation, not just for today, but when I first became the executive director of the Louisville Institute, Thad reached out to me and invited me to think with him about ways that we could collaborate. And one of the things I think I shared with him was really important to me as part of the Louisville Institute. I'm actually going to back up a minute and say what we do. The Louisville Institute is a Lilly Endowment funded program based at Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. And we provide grants, and so we engage in grant making and convenings and fellowships. And it was that opportunity one of the, as I'm going to pick up where Aizaiah left off, is when, as part of being an awardee of that first book grant, he attended a consultation then the first book grant, the sabbatical grant, and the project grant for the sabbatical grant, the research grant, and the dissertation grants. And so those four groups of awardees came together and would meet in small groups where it was an opportunity to share with each other our research, to get feedback and ideas about how to strengthen it. And so that was one of the benefits that both Aizaiah and I, at the time I was a sabbatical grant awardee, got from being participating in those consultations as grantees of the Louisville Institute. But so moving forward, I just want to say that among the Louisville Institute tends to describe its impact as how many awards we've given and how much money that we've awarded and our publications. And those are important. But what we did today is my goal and what's really important to me, and that brings it back to the invitation from Thad and how we could collaborate, is the storytelling piece. It's not just that Aizaiah received this award and he was able to do the research to publish his book, write and publish his book. But it's also now the opportunity to spread the word about his research and to share it, and for him to tell the story about the impact of being able to experience trauma, to live and to tell about it, and to help us to think about how we can support others who are experiencing trauma in ways that we can engage more inclusively and expansively with the divine. And so that's one of the things I just want to emphasize and thank that and the Common Table for. I also want to briefly share with you the other grants. And so there was the first book grant. We have the grant for researchers, and that's an opportunity for scholars to either take that 6 month or year-long break to do the research and to fund them so that they can have the space away from teaching and advising and other committee work and responsibilities. But we also have the Pastoral Study Project, which is for clergy and lay leaders who would like to have time off from the church to do research. And we are going to have a virtual gathering in the fall where you'll meet one of or two recipients from the Pastoral Study Project grant. And if you're interested in learning more about that, I'm going to include the name of that grant manager, which is Angel Douglas Crawford. If you'd like to, more information about that. And then we have the three fellowships. We have the dissertation fellowship, the doctoral fellowship, and the postdoctoral fellowship. And the postdoctoral and doctoral fellowships are part of what we call the Vocation of the Theological Educator, VTE initiative, for those who are overall, what we try to do is bridge church and academy. That is our purpose of our research grants and fellowships, is to bridge and strengthen the church and the academy, the bridge between the church and academy. And so this is an opportunity for them to discern whether or not they want the life of the vocation of a theological educator. All of our grants we're about to enter into the new grant cycle. And so June 1st, we will open up, and you can get the information for the application. The first one coming up will be August, and that's the Pastoral Study Project grant. September will be the grant for researchers. And then following that is the October, the postdoctoral fellowship. And then in the winter, we get into the dissertation, the first book grant, and the doctoral fellowships. And so you have anywhere from again, 6 months to a year for time away to get the funding for your research. And so I thank you again for being here and for listening to Aizaiah's story and seeing where one's research can go into sharing into the wider community and being a gift to the community, to the church. And so I also want to thank Aizaiah for his work.
Indeed. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Lovelace. You mind if we just ask a couple of questions before we conclude our time? I think Phil might have had to drop off, so I'm going to go ahead and pop in to the chat, the Louisville Institute website. So just to confirm here, so your granting is not just for academics, not just for researchers, but also for practitioners, for pastors and lay leaders that want to investigate certain things. Is that right? It's both.
That is correct.
Research. Okay. And then also, it sounds like that you don't grant just within one specific Christian theological stream, but you grant across the Christian theological stream. So would that be accurate?
We are ecumenical. We award it. We do not discriminate based on denomination or race, ethnicity, gender, or any other. The only criteria is that the research be on Christian, on the church or Christianity, movements within the Christianity, and we are limited to the United States and Canada. And so if you are outside of the United States or Canada, or You can be an international student or scholar if you are teaching or studying in the U.S. You are eligible for our awards.
Wonderful. All right. And also, just to make sure, I think you said that some grant opportunities will begin opening in June, and then there's other subsequent grant opportunities that are coming this fall as well. Is that right?
So our new cycle begins in June, but the applications are, again, the first one will be in August, and that's the Pastoral Study Project grant. So you have, as of June 1st, you can go in and start applying for that grant, which has I want to say August 15th or August their 8th deadline, and then the next deadline is the grant for researchers. So there are different deadlines for each grant
Okay. All right.
or fellowship.
We'll make sure to be aware of those. Does anybody on the call have any questions you'd like to pop into the chat, or maybe use the raise hand function? And then while folks are thinking, Dr. Lovelace, it sounds like, especially from Aizaiah's perspective, that it wasn't just the money or the time that was so significant, it was also the community. So it was having a chance to be able to process together. So can you talk just a little bit more about this community? Because you bring grantees together for conversation as well.
Yes. So originally, well, I'm going to separate them. The VTE initiative, the Vocational the Theological Educator, they tended to, well, they all met separately, but the VTE met 3 times a year. Separately. And then the Pastoral Study Project consultation met separately, and the winter seminar and the dissertation grant for researchers and first book grant, they met separately. So when I became the executive director, I said, this is about bridging the church and academy. Let's bring everyone together at one time where they can fellowship with one another, they can learn from one another, and have that space. So we all met in Phoenix in January at the same time instead of in siloed consultations together. And that was very productive and I think really meaningful. But even in the smaller groups, like the winter seminar, which Aizaiah and I both attended together, and we happened to be in the same cohort, small group at that time, where different projects, different grants, but we still learned from each other. We still gave each other constructive feedback and encouraged one another. And that's what you get from not just the grant and the funding, but the community and the consultation and the encouragement. And yes, the website is currently because the grant cycle doesn't end until May 31st, and so the old information is still there, and so those deadlines are passed. But June 1st, you will see the new deadlines and the new information.
That's wonderful. Yep. And so please feel free, everyone, to check back in on the website as it comes, because there will be some opportunities for you all and some of your ideas, hopefully, to be considered for the possibility of some funding. And I'll say that one of the things I love about Louisville Institute is that in the same way that the Common Table tries to bring together folks for substantive conversation across areas of difference, the Louisville Institute does that as well. And so this is a great community. Any other questions that you all have before we conclude our time? All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lovelace. And one last thing before you all head out, I wanted to just make sure that you are aware on the Common Table's website, which I think you all have been to. If you go to the upcoming virtual gatherings page, and then just scroll down, obviously today's is there. We're going to be taking some time off for the summer because we know that folks will be traveling and resting for the summer months. But we've got a number of opportunities coming up this fall, and those are all on the website. So Dr. Reggie Blunt will be coming from the Oikos Institute to talk with us about how to think from scarcity to abundance. So thinking about congregational assets, especially in low-income or marginalized communities. So how do you make the most of that? If you've got a declining budget, how do you make an impact? We'll be talking a little bit about that. We've also got 3 different presenters that are going to be coming to talk about bivocational and even beyond bivocational ministry. One of these, Jeff McDonald, was a Louisville Institute grantee, and so his research was then published into a book. We'll have him coming along with a few researchers from Canada. The Church Mental Health Summit, which is the largest mental health summit in the world that specifically focuses on the Christian tradition, is coming up October 7th, 8th, and 9th. The Common Table is the lead sponsor on that, so I hope you'll take advantage of it. David Eagle's going to be coming right before election time to talk about pastoring across political divides. And then also Brenda Jank will be coming to talk with us in November about building rhythms that prevent burnout. So we hope that you'll come and to join us for those. I want to say thank you so much to Phil and also to Aizaiah and also Vanessa for your leadership today. I hope you have a wonderful summer, and please come back and join us again this fall.